When I arrived at my son James's house with the birthday cake I had spent all morning baking, my daughter-in-law Victoria looked me right in the eye and said with a sweet smile, "Oh, Margaret, we already celebrated yesterday. We only wanted people who truly mattered to be there." The words pierced through me like shards of glass. People who truly matter. I, who for 4 years had paid their mortgage of $1,200 every single month, who had given them $15,000 for their down payment, who had furnished their entire home when they had nothing, I was not someone who truly mattered. I stood there in their marble-floored foyer that I had helped pay for, holding a homemade red velvet cake that suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds, watching my son avoid looking at me while Victoria made herself comfortable on the designer sofa I had purchased for them last Christmas. The gold necklace I had saved 3 months to buy for her birthday sparkled mockingly around her neck as she scrolled through her phone, showing absolutely no interest in my presence. I had spent $300 on ingredients and decorations for this party I thought we were having today. I'd called my best friend Susan to help me carry everything. I'd practiced the playlist of James's favorite songs from his childhood. All of that collapsed in an instant with those 7 poisoned words: people who truly matter. James finally raised his head and said in a rehearsed, hollow voice, "Mom, it was just a small gathering, very intimate, just a few close friends." But I knew it was a lie, because I had seen the photos on social media before they blocked me. I saw Victoria's parents beaming next to them. I saw her 3 sisters raising champagne glasses. I saw the professional photographer, the elaborate decorations, the catered food. I saw this celebration that cost thousands of dollars, money that had come from the account I had been transferring funds into for years. 2 weeks later, exactly 14 days after that humiliation, Victoria called me with an entirely different tone. The confidence was gone. Now she sounded frantic, almost hysterical. "Margaret, we have an emergency. The mortgage payment bounced, and the bank is threatening foreclosure proceedings. You forgot to make the transfer this month. We could lose the house." Her voice trembled with manufactured panic, as if the world were crashing down. I remained silent for several long seconds, remembering all the times I had rushed to the bank at the last minute to save them, all the times I had skipped my own doctor's appointments because I needed to work extra hours to give them money, all the times I had eaten budget meals for weeks so they could enjoy restaurant dinners and weekend getaways. And now, after they had deliberately excluded me from the celebration of my own son's 35th birthday, they had the audacity to call me as if nothing had happened? "Victoria," I said, with a calmness that startled even myself, "didn't I tell you I only help people who truly matter?" The silence on the other end of the line was so profound I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. For the first time in 4 years, it was not me who was trembling, but her. "Margaret, I don't understand. You've always been there for us. You're like the mother I never had." Lies, beautiful, calculated lies, wrapped in that honeyed voice she only used when she needed something, the same voice she had used when asking me to co-sign their mortgage, to buy their wedding rings, to finance their honeymoon to Bali that cost $8,000. Money I had given from the life insurance my late husband Richard had left me to ensure my comfortable retirement. For so many years, I had this gnawing feeling of walking on thin ice, measuring every word, every gesture, every gift, desperately hoping to receive even a fragment of genuine affection from my only son. I was the perfect mother, the accommodating mother-in-law, the silent benefactor who never questioned when they treated me like I was invisible. But that phrase, "people who truly matter," awakened something in me that had been dormant far too long. I had calculated everything that night after I hung up on her, Between the mortgage payments, the down payment gift, furniture, their car repairs, emergencies, both real and fabricated, vacations, and countless other expenses, I had given them $68,000 in 4 years. $68,000 I had taken from my retirement fund, from the money Richard had worked his entire life to leave me, from the cushion I needed from medical expenses as I aged. And what had it all been for? To be excluded from my own son's birthday, to be told I didn't matter. That night, I sat in my small apartment and wept. But these weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of rage, of accumulated frustration, of years of silent suffering. I cried for all the times they made me feel my love was a burden, my presence an inconvenience, my money the only valuable thing about me. I cried for the foolish woman I had been, who had lost herself trying to be indispensable to people who found her completely dispensable. When I woke the next morning, something fundamental had shifted inside me. It wasn't just pain from betrayal. It was something deeper, colder, more resolute. I stood before my bathroom mirror, seeing the same tired eyes that had cried countless nights, the same worry lines that told stories of decades of giving without receiving. But there was something new in my reflection now, a hardness I didn't recognize, a determination that had been buried under years of desperate people-pleasing. I made my morning coffee, as I had every day for 45 years of marriage and widowhood. But this time, I didn't check my phone hoping for an apology from James. I didn't plan what I could say to make them understand how much they'd hurt me. For the first time in years, I was my own first priority of the morning. I sat at my small kitchen table where I had so often counted bills for their expenses, planned surprises for them, and cried quietly when they canceled our plans. Now this table would witness something entirely different. I pulled out my financial records and began documenting everything with cold precision. Monthly mortgage payments of $1,200 multiplied by 48 months, $57,600. Down payment gift, $15,000. Furniture and household items, $8,500. Their wedding contribution, $5,000. Car repairs and insurance payments, $3,200. Medical bills I paid for Victoria, $2,400. Christmas and birthday gifts, $4,000. Emergency loans never repaid, $6,800. Vacation funding, $8,000. The total was staggering, $110,500. Over $100,000 from my retirement fund. Gone. Spent on 2 capable adults in their 30s who couldn't even pretend to respect me enough to include me in a birthday celebration. My phone rang. James's name appeared on the screen. Normally, my heart would race as I lunged to answer, hoping he'd finally apologize and explain it was all a terrible misunderstanding. But this time, I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, until it stopped, and I continued sipping my coffee as if nothing had happened. 10 minutes later, Victoria called. I let that ring too. Then a text from James, "Mom, please answer. We're in serious trouble." I deleted the message without responding. At noon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in months. I went for a walk with no purpose other than my own pleasure. No errands for them, no urgent trips to wire money, just a walk because I wanted to. I passed the park where I used to take James as a child. I remembered that sweet boy who would run into my arms and say, "I love you more than all the stars, Mommy." When had he transformed into this man who treated me like an ATM with feelings? When did I start believing love could be purchased? When did I begin thinking I needed to buy my own son's affection? At the bank where I had made countless transfers over the years, I stopped at the entrance. The branch manager, Mrs. Chen, spotted me through the window and waved. She had processed every transfer to James and Victoria. She had watched my account drain month after month while theirs grew. I walked straight to her office with purpose. Mrs. Chen, I need to cancel all automatic transfers I have set up, every single one. She looked genuinely shocked. For 4 years, these transfers had been as predictable as sunrise. Are you certain, Mrs. Whittemore? Has something happened? Her concern felt more authentic than any interest James had shown in my well-being for months. What happened, I replied steadily, is that I finally opened my eyes. I want everything canceled immediately, and I need information on how to completely protect my accounts. I don't want anyone else to have any access whatsoever to my money. While Mrs. Chen processed the cancellations, my phone erupted with calls. James, Victoria, James again, Victoria again. It was as though they had developed a sixth sense for detecting when their income source was in jeopardy. I powered the phone off completely. Mrs. Whitmore, Mrs. Chen said quietly as she handed me the paperwork, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I've watched you be extraordinarily generous with your family for years. I hope you're not being pressured to make these changes. Her words touched something deep within me. This woman, who barely knew me beyond banking transactions, showed more genuine concern for my welfare than my own son. I'm not being pressured, Mrs. Chen, I assured her. Quite the opposite. I've finally stopped pressuring myself. As I left the bank, I felt strangely weightless, as if I'd left an enormous burden in that office. For the first time in years, my money was entirely mine. I had no financial obligations to people who saw me as a resource rather than a human being. I thought about all the things I hadn't done to please James and Victoria. The cruise to Alaska I'd canceled to give them money. The friends I no longer saw because I was always on call for their emergencies. The hobbies I'd abandoned because every dollar I spent on myself was one less dollar for their needs. The medical procedures I'd postponed because they needed money more urgently. When I arrived home, I found 2 cars parked aggressively in front of my building, James's BMW and Victoria's Mercedes. Both vehicles I had helped finance. I could see them through my ground floor window, pacing in the lobby, clearly agitated. My blood turned to ice. They had keys to my apartment. I had given them keys because I trusted them, because I thought one day they might actually want to take care of me the way I'd taken care of them. I took several deep breaths before entering my building. It was time for the first real confrontation of my new life. I opened my apartment door to find James sitting on my threadbare sofa with his head in his hands and Victoria pacing like a caged predator. The contrast between my modest apartment and the house I'd bought for them was painfully stark. "What are you doing here?" I asked in a voice louder and stronger than I expected. Both looked at me as if I were the intruder in my own home. "Mom, thank God," James said, jumping up. "We went to the bank and they said you canceled everything. Mrs. Chen wouldn't give us any information. What's going on? Are you having some kind of breakdown?" "Breakdown?" The word came out almost like a laugh. I've never been more clear-headed in my life. Victoria stepped forward, her face a mask of concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Margaret, honey, we're worried about you. Your behavior has been so erratic lately. First cutting us off financially with no explanation, then ignoring our calls. Have you talked to your doctor? Sometimes at your age, confusion can set in." The word confusion set off alarm bells in my mind. I suddenly understood their strategy. They were going to try to have me declared mentally incompetent. I am not confused, I said with crystalline clarity. I am seeing things clearly for the first time in years. And you both need to leave my home immediately. Mom, we can't just leave, James protested, his voice taking on that whining quality from childhood. We have obligations. The mortgage, car payments, credit cards you co-signed. You can't just abandon us overnight. I can't. Why says I can't? For 4 years, I've paid a mortgage on a house that isn't mine. I filled a refrigerator in a home where I wasn't welcome at my own son's birthday party. Victoria's mask slipped. We already explained that. It was a small celebration. We didn't want to trouble you. Trouble me? I felt my control fracturing. The trouble was seeing photos of 25 people celebrating while I sat alone with a homemade cake. The trouble was hearing I don't matter to my own son. Mom, you're twisting everything, James said desperately. We were going to celebrate with you separately. This is exactly the kind of irrational thinking that worries us. I walked to my small desk and pulled out the folder Mr. Patterson, my new attorney, had prepared for me. These are all the financial records of everything I've given you. $110,000 in 4 years. I've documented every transfer, every gift, every payment. James's face went pale. Victoria's eyes narrowed with calculation. Those money were given freely, Victoria said carefully. It was gifts. You can't expect it back. I don't want it back, I replied. I want you to understand that those gifts came from someone you decided didn't matter enough to celebrate with. They came from someone whose love you took for granted. And now that source has permanently dried up. Margaret, be reasonable. Victoria's voice hardened. We've built our entire financial structure around your support. We made decisions based on your promises. Promises I made before I knew I was nothing but a checkbook to you. James tried to approach me, but I stepped back. He wasn't the boy who needed his mother anymore. He was a 35-year-old man who saw his mother as an obstacle to an easy life. Mom, if you don't reconsider, we'll lose everything, he said, and I heard genuine fear in his voice. But it wasn't fear of losing me. It was fear of losing my money. Then perhaps you'll learn what I learned, that you have to stand on your own 2 feet, that love can't be bought, that self-esteem is never too expensive. After they left, after the door closed on their protests and threats, I stood in my small apartment, surrounded by the most beautiful silence I'd heard in years. It was the silence of freedom. The next 6 months were a war. James and Victoria did try to have me declared mentally incompetent. They hired lawyers. They fabricated evidence. They found a doctor willing to testify I was showing signs of dementia based on a 10-minute conversation. But I had Mr. Patterson, who specialized in elder abuse cases. I had medical evaluations from 3 different psychiatrists confirming my complete mental competence. I had bank records showing years of systematic financial exploitation, and I had something else. I had finally found my voice. The judge dismissed their case within 2 hours of deliberation. He actually admonished them from the bench, saying, "This court sees no evidence of mental incapacity. What this court does see is a clear case of financial elder abuse by family members who should be protecting, not exploiting, Mrs. Whitmore." I never spoke to James or Victoria again. I heard through mutual friends that they lost the house, had to file for bankruptcy, and eventually divorced. The stress of actually having to support themselves destroyed whatever they had together. I sold what little I had left and moved to a small cottage by the sea. I joined a painting class, made real friends, and started volunteering at an elder abuse prevention center. I shared my story with other victims, helping them find the strength I'd finally discovered. Some nights, looking at the ocean from my porch, I think about the woman I was just a year ago. Fearful, manipulated, believing I had to purchase love. That woman is gone, and in her place is someone who understands a fundamental truth. Real love never has a price tag, and self-respect is never too expensive. My name is Margaret. I'm 68 years old, and I finally learned that the most important person I need to love and protect is myself. If you found meaning in my story, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced something similar? What would you do in my situation? I read every comment, and your stories give me strength. For more real-life stories like this one, please like and subscribe. There are many more waiting for you. Until next time,